now run.
Just bear one moment. You're now live, Chair.
Welcome back to the following meeting following the adjournment. Can I now request that the public speakers for item 7, invite Mr. Wilson. Sorry, I think I've got something. Mr. Howells, on behalf of Ledley County, Dr. Lloyd and Miss Clare, please take their seats in the front of the gallery. Thank you, and welcome. I'll call you to speak after the officer. Smart will make the presentation.
Existing Bangor and collection of delivering retirement living apartments to the associated development. Taking 53 apartments are proposed, as that proposal is submitted on behalf of the Parker Stone. Red star on this slide indicates the application site, which is located right into Hemang in the blue, within the total proximity of the town centre. The application is support committee following a redirection test from Councillor Harvey. Next one, please. The site comprises a parcel of land measuring approximately 1 hectare. There is an existing residential bungalow which fronts on the 3 hectares. Picture slide, left hand corner. The existing bungalow has been demolished. A part of the site which opens up significantly behind residential property park and meadow. The site is located approximately 0.2 miles north of the town centre. It's well located to access existing services and facilities within the town centre. Tesco supermarket is located immediately and is indicated by the orange star on the top left hand slide. Train station with a short distance to the north of the site is indicated by a small purple star on the bottom right hand corner of the image. Next slide, please. This slide relates to the heritage context in respect of the site. The site's not within the Ledley conservation area. The slide is approximately 100 south of the site as per the conservation area mapping slide. There are no listed buildings within the application site as set out in the report. The nearest listed buildings are Oakland Lodge, Oakland House and Tone Lawn, all of which are grade 2 listed buildings and lie within 70 metres of the application site. These are shown in the top right hand image. The NAP is a residential property which lies immediately north of the site but immediately east of the site. Property was built in 1878 and has historic association with the buildings. We considered the non-designated heritage asset given its historical associations. The photograph is included at the bottom right hand corner. The site is not within or adjacent to the Member Hills area MD. The site is shown on map 11 of the Ledley Neighbourhood Development Plan, which relates to open and green space. Map 6 of the NDP also refers to local strategic corridors and enhancement services for green infrastructure. The site denoted by a yellow circle in the bottom right hand image falls within an LSC1 area, patch of green, which includes various objectives. The matter of opening green space will be revisited later on in this presentation. Next slide, please. In terms of the site context, the site is heavily screened by dense foliage and trees along the majority of its perimeter. The topography is such that this level falls significantly from the east and then southeast to northwest. There's a total fall of approximately 12.5 metres within the site. The image one on the top left-hand corner is standing within the natural, looking towards the site which is beyond the vegetation. Images 2 and 3 are taken from the rear section of the site, looking back towards the common. Only 4 looking north and in a 5 looking east with an indication of the level. Distant foliage. Some grave concerns regarding scale and design based on for information to set out the region of the application and the design scale. Course of the application, this slide shows the originally submitted application proposals. Slide shows the now submitted layout plan. The proposed building would be an L shape and positioned fairly centrally within the rear part of the application site. A total of 31 bedroom apartments and 23 two-bedroom apartments are proposed. The accommodation includes a range of communal facilities, including a residence lounge, guest suite for use by friends and families, landscape gardens with seating areas, refuge storage, mobility storage, internal lift and wider corridors, and store entrance lobby and night servicing. I'll set out the access proposed in the home by a Greenacres plot. Parking is decided along the proposed access road, and a total of 40 car parking spaces are provided. A submitted landscaping layout is also included within this slide, as is the tree constraints plan with the right-hand corner side. Perimeter trees are proposed for retention. Some management of the existing trees will be required. Some tree removal will be required to accommodate the access, and additional planting is proposed. Next slide, please. This slide shows proposed elevations for the building. The development is a mixture of 3 and 4 stories in scale. In terms of the design approach, the building provides pitched roof, projecting radius detailing, red brick is the dominant material, and then the roof has been incorporated to the building. Slide shows the proposed street elevations in the context of the scale and massing of surrounding buildings. A proposed level structure is also included to the bottom right of this slide, and it indicates the location of retaining wall features within the floor levels as well as the end of the site. The application is accompanied by visually verified images which confirm the scale of the building based on the scale of surrounding buildings, albeit perimeter trees and vegetation will be retained. Slide, please. So as touched upon earlier in the presentation, the Ledbury Neighbourhood Development Plan Policy CL21, which relates to open and green spaces in Ledbury. The requirements of this policy are set out in detail within the committee report. The policy does not preclude developments. It does not designate local green space. It includes the site and a number of other areas which are subject to the criteria set out within the policy CLP1. The policy identifies the benefits that variously land included within MAP 11 exhibit. On the slide at the moment, we have the extract of the policy wording. We have the MAP 6, which shows the local strategic corridor, which is falls within. And we have MAP 11, which follows in with the space, the open green space in that space. We also have the appendix, which is included within part I of the policy, with the objectives that will apply to green infrastructure. The policy identifies the criteria which have been considered in the report. Policy then goes on to say open and green space as shown will be protected and maintained. Loss of space will only be permitted if it can be shown as surface to compliance, or the value of its visual, historic and community attributes is considered to be outweighed by the benefits of the development. An assessment of the scheme in the context of CL21, also considering the core strategy policy position, has been undertaken by officers. Within paragraph 6.23 of the committee report, each criteria is discussed. Officers have then assessed the visual, historic and community attributes within the core. In terms of the benefits of the scheme, within the second factory, in a highly sustainable location, need immediate access services and facilities within core strategy policy and one and the support proposal which promotes reduction of private tenancy, the proposal of contribution towards those wider areas. Proposed development would also provide specialist elderly residential accommodation in an area identified as having a higher need and where the Ledbury Neighbourhood Development Plan policy includes a specific promotional policy for residential accommodation for elderly people in policy HO23. Small element of employment is proposed through the proposals. Regarding biodiversity and green infrastructure element of policy CL21, this scheme will contain existing green infrastructure and proposes additional plantings. A biodiversity net gain is also demonstrated. The ecology officer and the officer raised no objections. Officers are approved to review the specific requirements set out in policy CL21 are met. Next slide. In respect of the key issues, policy CL21 relates to the principle that has already been discussed. There are no technical objections in respect of the scheme, in respect of heritage, landscape, trees, local highway authority, land drainage, ecology, environmental health. Officers have acknowledged the scheme is large in terms of its massive scale, but each application is to be assessed on its own merits. And in reaching a conclusion regarding the design, the scale, the site context and specific characteristics of the site are of particular relevance. Members will note the scheme brings with it a requirement for affordable housing and financial contributions. A viability appraisal has been submitted by the applicant which demonstrates the scheme is not viable to support the provision of affordable housing and contributions. The council instructed a valuation office agency to independently review the significant report. The BOA endorsed the findings of the applicant's own viability assessment, confirming their professional opinion the scheme is not viable to support contributions or affordable housing. The matter is being independently verified. The National Planning Policy Framework identifies weight to viability appraisals as a matter for the decision maker. In reaching this recommendation, officers have considered the council's own policy position. Policy ID1 acknowledges there may be occasions where development may not meet policy requirements and remain viable. In such circumstances, the core strategy identifies the viability appraisal should be submitted. Policy H1 in respect of affordable housing also recognises viability as a factor, as does the standing practice guidance also makes some circumstances where viability might be a factor, which includes build to rent or housing for older people. The lack of contribution is acknowledged as a negative factor within officers' assessment. There is a relevant commentary on viability, and this is being independently assessed and verified. Therefore, taking account of all the considerations, the recommendation for officers is to approve the application subject to conditions.
Thank you. We now move on to the speakers. Can I now ask Councillor Howells on behalf of Leslie Founder, Councillor Howells. Apologies for me, you've got a voice problem.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Before I start, I'm not that well. I have a bronchial infection and talking is a bit difficult. Some say that's a good thing. I will do my best to keep going.
Hopefully we'll infect somebody.
Don't be getting. We're grateful the planning officer has granted substantial lengths in the report to justify why the application should be granted. But we do not agree that the NDP or local plan policy requirements have been sufficiently met. Despite the applicant being advised that the only formal LTC consultation on 17th of August 2022, that the site was a protected green space, which they had not realised, and were advised of the consultation stage to make representations, none were made during any of the official consultation periods. Only after the consultation period had ended was a failed attempt made to claim the land should not be recognised as a protected green space. This was rebutted. But the officer's report at clause 6.16 is therefore not accurate, since the land was included at the Reg 14 stage, although there was a minor drafting error on a map. There's a lot of planning policy detail in our three submissions, but I will only highlight three major concerns. First, the application does not meet the Herefordshire local plan policy obligations, and I quote, of a target of 40% affordable housing provision on sites in Ledbury, for which the plan makes it explicit affordable housing is a priority. It's hard to understand the officer's recommendation for approval, and given the developer is claiming it is not financially viable to provide either affordable housing or Section 106 money, the application fundamentally fails to meet key local planning obligations. We are not allowed to see the independent viability assessment supporting this claim, which surely the implications stretch credibility, and we do not see how no affordable housing or Section 106 money being provided can in any way be seen as policy compliant or acceptable. Second, the NDP says housing density should be within the range of 30 to 50 dwellings per hectare. Developments outside the town centre should be lower density to maintain an edge of countryside feel. At around 1 hectare with 53 departments, the application comfortably exceeds even the highest density range. Compared to local housing densities, the council calculates a maximum of 45 apartments would be more appropriate. At 60% above the maximum density and 17% over more appropriate density, we do not accept contention that 53 is a marginal excess, which is acceptable in planning policy terms. On design criteria, developments should ensure ridge heights are consistent with the heights of nearby buildings and running more than 2.5 stories where this can be shown to fit sensitively. Although in the application the developer stated that a 3-story building in its additional design is being proposed, this is misleading and not true. The elevation drawings show a significant element as being 4-story. There was only one other residential building with 4 stories of a similar height in the whole of Ledbury, and that was built in 2007. Finally, the estimated biodiversity plan, gain proposal for the most important habitat areas is a mere 0.18 biodiversity units, or less than 4% overall gain, against a loss of 2.4, minus 2.4 BU on development. This is extremely marginal. Thank you.
Dr. Lloyd, to speak on behalf of the resident.
Thank you very much. I'm here today to speak about public opinion, especially in the close vicinity of this development. The overbearing 4-story monolithic slab is really out of character with adjacent properties and causes the loss of privacy and visual amenity. The design, we feel, is old-fashioned, and its institutional corridors with the lack of wheelchair-friendly flats, are contrary to recommendations for housing for elderly people. Locally, there are 5 similar schemes already in operation, and they currently have 14 vacancies and seem to be difficult to fill. The traffic survey has been heavily criticised by Ledbury Town Council, and fails to take into consideration the impact of the large building that's taking place at the viaduct site and at the end of the highway, 600 plus homes that are currently being built. parked cars on the, especially on the east side, from the station in Nap Lane, contribute to an increased danger for both motorists and pedestrians. The pavements are narrow and dangerous and unfit. They have obstacles like broad down cabinets, telegraph poles. They're not suitable for mobility scooters or child buggies, and at their worst, they're only 1.2 meters wide. The Carthage Stone seems to have failed to address green issues, as I think Councillor Harold was saying. The design has no solar panels, no passive heating. It uses constructional materials that have very heavy energy footprint. Streams and ponds are being covered over, and mature trees are being removed. I'd like to just move on because I am a trustee of the Friends of Ledbury and District Healthcare, which supports health provision and social care in the surrounding areas. And we tend to promote education, purchase of equipment. But recently, we've been asked to provide funding for construction or expansion of existing rooms in a number of GP surgeries. Because of the increase in this list size, more space is required, and they cannot get sufficient funding from the healthcare authorities like the CCG as it was. So we have actually agreed to fund this. However, this really points out that section 106 is really insufficient. Well, I've just finished to actually provide money for this. And if the Carthage Stone are not prepared to do this, then the project really should be completed. Thank you.
I've come to speak to the applicant. I know that we see at the end of the which other people.
Yes.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just jump straight into things. So firstly, in terms of the principle of development, the main consideration here is the recently made Ledbury Neighbourhood Plan, specifically its protection of identified open spaces, including the site. It is important to acknowledge here that the policy does not preclude development on these sites altogether. Rather, it sets out criteria and circumstances where the loss of these spaces can be justified. This is the case in this application, which has been gone through in great detail in your officer's report, which demonstrates how the proposals have addressed these circumstances. So the release of the site for development is compliant with the neighbourhood plan policy. In terms of specific proposals on the site, you will have seen that these have evolved significantly during the application, working with officers to reach the scheme in front of you today. As a result of this extensive work, there are no technical consultative objections to the scheme, including from highways, drainage, landscape, heritage, and ecology and tree officers. Moving on to the benefits of the proposals, the key ones to note are the delivery of 53 specialist older persons homes in Ledbury to meet a significant and growing need. This in turn has wider benefits to the housing market as people downsize and free up starter and family size homes in the area. The site's in a highly sustainable location, which helps to reduce reliance on private vehicles. The scheme is also of a high quality design that embraces the local architectural style of Ledbury, but interpreted into a contemporary approach befitting of a new build development. The scheme achieves a high standard of sustainability credentials, including a highly efficient building fabric, air source heat pumps, solar panels, electric heating, so no gas boilers, mechanical heat recovery to reduce the reliance on heating in first instance, and EV charging points to all parking spaces. Externally, the proposals will protect the majority of trees on site, creating a high quality landscape setting for future residents and also to protect the amenity of existing residents in the area, whilst delivering an overall net gain in biodiversity. So just to wrap those all together, the proposals will contribute towards a significant and growing need of housing for the elderly in a highly sustainable location, incorporating high quality and sustainable design, enhancing green infrastructure through the delivery of a biodiversity net gain. There are no technical consultative objections from officers, so we'd urge you to follow your officer's recommendation and approve the application. Thank you.
Right, we now move on to the local member. Who's the local member to Leslie? Hardy, your tenure.
I'd like to start by thanking the committee members for attending the site visit yesterday to view this unusually large area of meadow in Yorkshire, situated away within the built form of Ledbury. There are three main policy-related impediments to the development of this site. Namely, one, the site is protected green space in the neighbourhood development plan and meets the criteria for remaining so. Two, the developer admits that it is not financially viable to develop the site without breaching policy requirements to deliver 40% affordable housing. That would be 23 apartments in place of this development. It's that it is not even financially viable to provide the required development contributions to mitigate the site's impact on public services and local infrastructure such as healthcare, which is one of the other speakers. Taking each of these in turn, the site is untouched green space, in referencing maps in the Scottish Library online archive. It can be seen that the space has always been as we saw it yesterday, going back as far as records exist, and in more recent times has formed part of the extended natural surroundings to the Knapp, the poet John Masefield's home in Ledbury, and has remained in his family until very recently. This space was recognised as unusual and special in planning terms as far back as the first local plan, developed in Hereford and Worcestershire County Council days, and was designated as protected green space in the first Herefordshire Unitary Development Plan. But, unfortunately, in 2015, with the first Herefordshire local plan adopted as our core strategy, along with the UDP protections for all green spaces. These protections were left to neighbourhood development plans to reinstate, and it's unfortunate that Ledbury's first disastrous MVP failed to address this basic gap, along with many other important planning issues for the town. Thankfully, this omission was corrected with a speedy update to the MDP, which has secured a settlement boundary for the town, along with the reprotection of this meadow, along with all the other UDP protected green spaces and wildlife corridors. The developer was made aware of this reprotection at the earliest point in his application's planning process. The application was submitted when the MDP was already at Regulation 16 and could be afforded a wait at that point. This reprotection is in conformity with the National Planning Policy Framework, paragraph 98, which also guards against the loss of important space, and I would argue that under MDP policy CL 2.1, given in paragraph 6.15 of the officer report, circumstances outlined in qualifying criteria descriptions H and I are satisfied by the space, and none of the NPPF 99 criteria given in paragraph 620 of the officer report are relevant to the development. Site is not accessible to the public and never has been, and in fact, this is one of its important plus features as regards its ecological value. Just like some sections of the Red Meadows and the old limestone quarries on the outskirts of Ledbury itself, which are excluded, which runs the public are excluded from accessing, having spaces such as these where wildlife exists undisturbed is hugely important, especially to the delicate plants and insects of endangered species dependent on. Given the untouched nature of the site, I am surprised that the developer's ecology consultants have been unable to spot any rare reptiles on site, as this has been the case in all the other development sites which have come forward in Ledbury in recent years. And I can personally attest to the hunting, if not the roosting, of bats in this area on summer nights. In the evidence base of the current core strategy, Ledbury is assessed as having the lowest amount of natural and semi-natural green space in any assessed area in the county, except for those within the city itself, at a level of 8 hectares per 1,000 of population. The county average is 23 hectares per 1,000 of population. Therefore, it's clear that this site of natural and semi-natural green space cannot realistically be argued as surplus to local requirements. Committee members, please note that paragraph 4.14 and 4.15 in the officer report, the site location is not identified correctly on the maps. The red line marking seems to have slipped. However, these maps refer to surface water and drainage. And surface water drainage is proposed to an adjacent stream passing through Robinson's Meadow and Newman's developments on its way to the River Leven. This stream already floods and has previously caused damage to property and dunes. Ledbury is experiencing increasingly frequent flash flooding events, and members can see the existing routes of surface water both to the north and south of the site on these maps. The site itself presently represents 100% water permeability in its undeveloped state, but if developed, would have more than 3,200 square metres of impermeable air, the runoff for which would need to be dealt with. I do have a question regarding foul water treatment, which officers may be able to help. In 2022, Severn Trent notified that they are unable to handle the additional foul water processing, even if just the first phase of the new development on the strategic housing site in Viaduct in Lebanon, without significant investment in the town's sewage treatment, which has yet to be approved. Severn Trent requested that a blanket condition be applied to the Viaduct site, meaning that no development on the site would take place until the matter was resolved. Presumably, the same concern about pressure placed on existing treatment infrastructure is also therefore applying to this development, although it's not mentioned in the report. Because both developments are handled by the same case officer, perhaps this point of contradiction can be clarified. As to the development, which comprise more than 80% of the comments received, worry about the scale of development, its 4-storey height, higher than any existing buildings in Lebanon. The development's massing on site and the soil banks proposed by the developer to address the more than 12-metre fall in site levels, but for which little detail has so far been provided. The area on the site is almost exactly like the core strategy housing set identifies that this site should be developed at an average density of 40 dwellings per hectare. This development on another site within the town proposes 53 dwellings on this 1 hectare site, which is 133% of the average proposed density. Again, something for the committee to bear in mind. Objectors are also concerned about the site access proposed onto the Hemel, very close to the Matt Lane junction, a notorious wrap-down and traffic problem, which is only going to be made worse as the junction and Common is further loaded with traffic from the strategic housing site at the Viaduct as this site comes forward. It is disappointing that committee members were not able to access the bungalow proposed for demolition to deliver the site access during yesterday's site visit, so as to view for yourselves these access points of concern. This application would mean this committee waiving the hugely important policy requirements for developments of this size to deliver 40% affordable housing and to contribute Section 106 means to mitigate the impact of the development on local infrastructure, such as healthcare facilities, local transport, drainage and the public realm. McCarthy and Stone, a very successful and well-known developer, believe that they are incapable of making sufficient money from building 53 luxury retirement apartments on the site to enable them to meet the core strategy policy requirement under LB1 to provide 50% affordable homes. And that's 21 flats, and that's 21 flats in there. One of the highest house price areas in the county. Further than that, and despite many years of experience in the field, McCarthy and Stone have presented figures in the viability assessment, which is not available to community members or to the public, stating that the very modest proposal, I think have, and so did everybody else. Do that in the same way.
Oh, yes, if you could please take your seat back in the bus. Oh, yeah, we got one to be running. Very close to being. Okay, now I'm about to get.
We were taking my walking pole, to get them. No structure yet. I'm concerned, which has been mentioned about the height of this particular building, which really tower over Indian clusters. Also, we talked about being a retirement place for locals to move out of their larger house into a smaller space. Actually, I can't see this happening because this retirement place looks to me like it's going to be a very expensive place to live. So what I feel is going to happen is that people who love coming to Ledbury on opinions from outside will actually retire there. So actually, I can't see that is an argument that we can use. Going back to this beautiful space, but I do feel that it is just such a waste to not be used by the local schools as a nature trail. It could be used for a lot of things to do with the local schools. When a lot of people agree with that or not, I just feel that schools nowadays need to actually get out into open air, feel the land, look at the apple growing on a tree, which I just have strong opinion. At the moment, I will listen to everybody else before I select the picture I'm going to do here.
Councillor Thomas from the council. Problem with what I said. I totally agree with it. Can take, if you take out the forward one of the scale of development, 8 million, I think, and I said 7, but you can't relate, then there's something wrong. What is wrong is the fact that we, as a committee, cannot see this so-called sensitive information. I think that's totally off. It's been a usually doing just literally wish to do the story is to make it, even if it's taken back to now, immediately read it. I personally, because like that, I do understand the medical facilities Ledbury are flooded badly. Then we also, as we pointed out, 26 and other alternative accommodation would. I can see. I have, and I've been quite frankly, that I do not support them. I'm just saying.
I am a Ledbury ward member, Ledbury South. I have been since May. I've spent a year in the process of the election, effectively doing a public consultation survey as part of one canvassing. The biggest issue in Ledbury, aside from increasing up development that's currently going on, is the pressure on healthcare services. As a county with now an ageing population, Ledbury, that issue is exacerbated. It is a popular place to retire to, I think, elsewhere in the country. So I can understand why the developer wishes to build the proposals. I do not agree that it is for the local residents to downsize into that building. I do feel it would be bringing people from elsewhere in the country, as has been seen on other developments around Ledbury. We have got over 1,000 houses coming forward that are being consented within Ledbury, which is putting a huge, we've already got an issue in Ledbury of access to healthcare, and that's only going to be exacerbated. And older people moving into the area by developments like this, and articles in national papers saying that there's a great place to die to, and only put additional on our healthcare services in Ledbury. We have 2 GP surgeries merging into one, and I'm doing everything I can to issue support there. I feel the scale massing of this proposal is out of context. I feel a very large development because of the topography of Ledbury. In the meadow there will be overshadowed substantially by that building. With regard to screening of other roads, I feel that the crack willows to the north of the site are deciduous. So for a large portion of the year, and the another year, you have complete visibility of the houses. Embankment there, the road. I don't think that the screening of the site and that very large massive building will be sufficient in vast portion of the year, only doing really want to support the neighbourhood development plan. It was identified as a key resource to understand a green space within Ledbury. Ledbury has very few green spaces within the built-up urban area. And in relation to policy CL 2.1G, I disagree with Chloe in this respect, the officer. She's produced an excellent report on rebutting and providing evidence for lots of decisions. But in relation to G, I do feel it represents a historic element within the origins of the development of the settlement of the area. It's linked to the lighthouse, which has historic complications, and the whole pattern of development around there is based around that site. It does also provide at point H a stepping stone built up area for wildlife, which is vitally important. Very visible from the top, if you go up Nap Lane and the houses along the top there and along Bank Crescent, look down into that site, so it's very visible from the air. For that proximity to central town, why there 40 car parking spaces for a development that's supposedly within the centre of town and should be almost reducing that number of car parking spaces. And I really do have an issue with the planning obligations. I completely understand the independent valuation that's been done. I understand why it can't be made accessible because it's commercially sensitive. However, at the end of the day, we need more money to support the health services, and this investment is not part of it.
I've got to say that the 3 times television doesn't help. from the presenter is Lindsay Jason be here, it seems to be half the program, so trying to tell that you can be tired of it. He's not grouping into a very clear. So anyway, Councillor Twinby.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I've just got two questions on issues which have already been raised, scale and development contribution. So it's some questions for clarification. In paragraph 6.53, about ridge heights. So the ridge heights should be consistent with the height of nearby properties. So I just want to know, presumably this needs to be amplified by taking into account the elevation of the ground, not simply the same number of stories as the surrounding. That will not be given in less instance. Huge American kind of design. They're quite well known to in their exceptions and scales. It's quite natural that they have to factor in the terms of shareholders when you calculate it. And just say that it's not financially viable to provide a free.
I'll take the last couple of points first, just in terms of the scale, no, it's not the same number of stories as adjacent development, but it's taking into account the levels of the site and the relationship that the scheme will have with those properties. And as discussed in the presentation, the applicant has provided visually verified imagery which are to scale in terms of the surrounding area. And so that does give an indication of sort of scale beyond the site. In terms of developer contributions, you know, it's not sort of taking the developer's word for it. There's been a robust assessment of the schemes, independently reviewed by the valuation office agency. And in terms of, you know, there's also been thought in terms of the applicant and in terms of the parking stone, actually the viability review is in respect of the scheme, it's not in respect of the applicant, and I think that's something that's important to remember in the context of this application. It matters beyond in terms of how this particular applicant handles their own sort of community interest, that's not to be considered within the planning remit, and it's doing a scheme, it's doing review, and mentioning we've run the land and the ability to the applicant. I think there was a few other points in terms of screening of the site and actually some of the great points in terms of level speed and the decisions nurture centre and the trees. You know, officers have considered consider the scheme on the basis of the existing and its kind of boundary treatments, but also, you know, we do have to take the view as to, you know, if that vegetation is not there or is not there as it currently is. And I think that's, you know, in the report it's talked about the distances, the boundaries. So that hasn't been considered. You know, even with sort of the level of screening at the moment, and if that were to be left, but obviously through this proposal, there was additional planting proposed as well. You know, on the matter of the historical appraisal, I think members may reach different conclusions. Officers have given their position in terms of those criteria, but I think if that is the case, there's another step to the policy that still needs to be considered, and the criteria talks about the various benefits that apply to the the range of sites or land that's included within this broader allocation. So I think we don't know that a different conclusion is reached in terms of those specific criteria A to J and I. There's still that second step of the policy in terms of those three specific elements and the overall consideration of the benefits of the scheme. And in terms of just continuing from Councillor Harvey made within her presentation, 7% have raised their objection to the proposal and the bigger the guiding authority. I just wanted to call that to your attention.
Councillor Davis. Thank you. I'm having visited the site yesterday and being impressed with all the information that's been given to us. I considered the building would probably fit into that particular section of land fairly well. It would take up the space and it wouldn't become obtrusive to surrounding residents, purely because the site level is and such a shallow a dip in the ground there, it would probably fit in. The actual green area itself is not accessible to the public, as was mentioned previously. So consequently, it's of no benefit at the moment, and that potentially be something that should have been considered beforehand, was using it for better purposes. The demolition of the bungalow for entranceway, again, didn't seem to be that of much of an issue, purely because it's not listed and it's not of any significance. Having said that, the fact that there's going to be no contribution to S106 monies, no affordable housing, which I think is crucial for a facility of this type. If we're having retirement facility put in there, targeting those people that wish to downsize, then I think it's crucial that we have an element of that does actually fulfill that criteria. And for local people to have that facility to move in there would require, I think, a reduced amount of charge. So consequently, I can't support this. Thank you.
Thanks for start.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to repeat what's been said by a number of other members. I'm kind of just pinning down what we mean by the financial contribution scheme. 6.122, if these are the correct figures, says that a total of £67,914 is linked to be contributed. If even taking a lower value of 7 million, that's less than that. We're asking this developer to contribute less than 1% of a development, and yet they're saying that is not viable. With respect, I just find that unbelievable. I just have to accept that the DOA has done the assessment and they are independent, and that is the result. Yeah, it does certainly be first. The other point I want to really raise here is under Environment Act 2021, this authority is now the lead on local nature recovery policy. This is a green space, I accept it's not sensible. It's a green space that has benefit to the island, the atmosphere, the general habitat and wildlife. I'm really going to set the fence here, it's a different thing because there are been, as I said, I do answer like something. For a moment, on this, the debate into my mind.
Thank you, Chairman. It appears most of the objections to this particular debate revolve around the allegation that effective open. Final paragraph of 6.15 is quite clear. It says open and green space is to be protected and maintained. And the loss of the space will only be protected if it can be shown to be surplus to requirements for recreational purpose. Now, this site is actually not open to the public. In fact, if you walk past it, you can't get in there because it's behind block gates. The open for us. So I don't think that argument. With regard to affordable housing, I don't think I don't know of any retirement estates like the proposed here that will have affordable housing within it. Because if you want to, if you're an elderly person, they're all getting there sometime. If you want to go and live in a retirement flat do we want affordable housing with the noise and children you're going to get? Do we want that around it? Of course we don't. Although for a child lover, then we don't know it. But we want peace and quiet. And that's where one of the advantages, I suppose, of erecting the retirement state is because there's a reduced possibility of noise. Other residents close by aren't going to be bothered by noisy parties. There'll be reduced vehicle movements because most elderly people got a little tiny car or haven't got one at all, and because they can walk into town from this site. And there's a reduced disturbance to wildlife as well, because people there aren't making a noise, running them up, disturbing the birds and the squirrels, etc., etc. So there's pros and cons to this. It just depends on your viewpoint. It's all very subjective, I think, with regard to this type of development. What does concern me, as everybody, is this: they can't afford the amenities. If they can't afford it, then they don't build it. Simply, they can't afford it, and put something else up that you can afford. So my view would be that if you can't afford, because everyone else, all the other development in this county, pay their fair wage, Section 106 agreement. And if they are using some special policy or whatever, I don't know how they do it. Maybe the lawyer will tell us how they manage this. But if they can't afford it, then they don't do it. My view is that I've got no objection to elderly resident estates in principle. They serve a purpose. But I think with this particular application, into the local area, I think we can reduce on those grounds.
Thank you, that. I've no attempt to get it.
One thing that I do feel must be touched on yet is the traffic limit. So looking at the maps of the site, it appears that the entrance and exits doesn't have sufficient space for two vehicles. And it's feeding up out of the slope onto a very busy road, and it's parking on the opposite side. It's in very close proximity to Knapp Lane, which, as you saw, there's people coming in, up and down it, and that causes tailbacks there because of it being running run out. Also, I've just done a tiny bit of maths. I've been through all of the plans, and I can't figure out the elevations of the site itself. The gradients going down into the site are very steep. So it would be making or especially if it's legal comparison, the elderly residents may need to be with them. Access into and out of that site for them is actually going to be very difficult. So under policy MT1.4, I'm sure it's developments are designed and laid out with some safe open spaces so they don't feel that have appropriate operation on the meeting space, which it may do inside. Public provisions for almost transport for needed people with disabilities and don't feel that. And provide safe access to emergency services. So it's, I don't know, like that's for that one. I don't feel it's.
Yes, it is a very, very busy department. I will be increasing a bit busy with this 650 hours already. That is coming. Councillor Hitchner and then Councillor Woods.
Mr. Chair, well, Councillor Bacon, Councillor Stark, I'm concerned this financial side structures credibility. So we have a proposal where the density is higher than you would expect. So it seems to be that the developers that you need higher density in order to make it work. Added to that, of course, house prices are going up in the area. We've got some ridiculous prices for so in order to make it financially viable, presumably they have gone to the sort of highest level that they possibly can on the pricing. We don't have the figures, so we don't know what their facing is on. But maybe it's the highest level. which prevents local people from buying into the area. So we need housing like this for the local people. Councillor Baker's point about part of it being social housing, I think my understanding would be that it's social housing, it's for older people. It's not, it would not have children running around, apart from grandchildren, of course, which would be perhaps a great pleasure for the residents there. But I don't think the idea is to make it affordable housing so that if anybody to get it would be older people, and it would then enable older people from that area to move in, who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford to do so. So by stipulating that there must be some affordable housing, we're actually helping. That we can still question it, and I would have considerable concern. It just defies, as I say, defies credibility as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
In the past, I'm not sure we would be any ways we have to solve them. That's another matter. Anyway, Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to devil's advocates, they've been hearing this, but it's very good points forward. And putting it into the McCarthy term retirement aspect, social housing doesn't fit the evidence from here. Obviously, it's something that's not there. And as such, if they're going to build their bases and work it that way, so be it. But they should make a contribution. That is the bottom line, because we're bringing more people into the area, we're increasing it. Councillor Fleming said earlier, the pressures on GP surgeries and the health services is phenomenal. And we forget also, we should be listening to the town council and their thoughts on it, and what the people have said. They know the area better than we do in some areas. And it's very much, they've said their piece, and we listen to it, and they understand it. Councillor Denard, we almost swept off the pavement yesterday when I was walking behind it by a great big bus flying down the Hom End, and she went into the side of the wall to avoid it. The pathway is narrow. The exit onto that road opposite that lane is diabolical, for one thing. I did ask the question of the officer yesterday about the size of the entrance where the bungalow is being knocked down. How would it access? Would it be wide enough for somebody to come off the main road, there and somebody to come out? But the road is busy. The town council have explained their policy. They've got a planning policy in place now. I think we should listen to that as well as what we're taking on board here. On a personal note, that's a business module, and that's how you work your business module fine. No social housing, not against that, but it's the company wants to do it. But if they do that, they must contribute in a higher way to what we support our infrastructure within the county, and in this case, in particular, London. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
Yeah. So just on the point of the access, it's 5.5 meters, it's significantly accommodated feedback and far leaving and other insight. Good point with that building. Apologies. It's over, I've been correcting them and it's over. Listening to what you were saying, would like to go, obviously that was a big concern, but the lack of one of its solutions in this instance will do that's an impact on the development of the mitigators. Leaving that is that we can take that into account. Well, the advice and guidance that members clearly start out to, that the information that has been to get. We know there are sometimes circumstances where there are developments that aren't going to be viable. They have to meet, I say, there's got to be viability statement and assessment, and that has been verified, and that's it has been resatisfied it. The values of the stuff that I know that independent verification, and we've explained that to the
So we have to take that into account as well. Being around and making a decision, that's fair. I think we need to clarify as well that, it is possible for me to have sight of that report. I'm not sure it's going to make think about business team right now, going away that you're scrutinising every single figure yourselves. When we've had that done elsewhere, then, you know, the answer is still going to be on behalf of the applicant that the motion, but there isn't, it's been really viable and that offer isn't on the table. So I'm a bit reluctant to say, let's go away and give you that information when I feel that actually, you know, there isn't a different result and we have had it independently verified as well. It's, you know, there is a risk involved, I suppose, if you go down the route of recommending the fee or recommending methods, institutions that, you know, that there is a risk involved in that obviously the viability of any inspectors who are taking into account viability of the extent as well. But, you know, in round, we need to take into account anyway. We need to take into account the benefits of the scheme as well. And I think probably we should explore a little bit more about going back to policy CLT 2.1. The criteria that they really carefully detailed in there. And as she turns out, going back to, you know, is this site, there is a lot of the space, surface in front of recreational purposes, or the value of it, the social, historic, community attributes. We don't really look at what are those visual, historic, and community attributes that would be lost if this site was developed. So that's
Yeah, I just I wasn't really. It's point we haven't touched on in the debate, the historical point of this. The fact that, you know, the one thing that revenues known to is done most of it. And that, me personally, and after everything, is a very important thing. And, you know, the effect on that, and, you know, it is, it's still pretty significant. I think that revenues known for around the world. Pennsylvania is something very fantasy.
yes, thank you. I think we need some more explanation about 106 million. We all know exactly what 106 million is. My understanding was that we didn't actually go to the town council, as it were. We're going to use that money as they saw fit. Can you touch me on that? It can go to build extra on the facility or whatever. So that I'll clarify. So I'm very about to take monthly report these, which details to be filed with the salary. The full details of the rest of the report. So in instances, the executive manager would have, if it was policy compliant, if it was policy compliant, it would have a field comparison requirement of 11 one-bedroom dwellings and 2 bedroom dwellings. It would have a transport contribution of 50,195. Waste and recycling contribution is about the waste of the waste of 2,500. The contribution to its library service, 4,171. And then the contribution to its health, which is 11,030. So those are the contributions that this scheme would have required. And that is the contributions that gone into that viability assessment. So they looked at whether or not the viability was part of the viability of the scheme as a whole. So that's really laid out as. So going back is Kelly's asked us to do to further look at relation policy CL 2.1. The historic elements of that site needs to be explained more, I feel. John Mansfield is a poet laureate. Our high school is named after John Mansfield. We have the John Mansfield Society in Ledbury. During the recent poetry festival, we had the eminent scholar on John Mansfield's history and biography came and gave the book. And we have the John Mansfield Society of Italy at the moment trying to create John Mansfield Trail, of which his house and Florida formed part of that. That house and its garden and its land that was attached to it, which is where the site is, how the town settlement is developed with, you have Newton Park coming off to its north bank,
and you have Robinson's Meadow to its west, and then the Tesco's to the south. That has built up in that because of the context of that site. And as soon as you remove that site, you can no longer read that historical development of Ledbury and how those streets were formed. In terms of the visibility of the site, as I said, I've talked about these issues publicly. The verified visuals that are supplied did not provide, as far as I could see on the planning application, please contradict me if I'm wrong, Kerry, that the verified visuals were looking into the site from the home. You didn't have them looking from the rear into or from the bank present looking down into the site. Is that correct? Because I saw nobody from it doing the planning application documents out of that practice from the site. So we are, we're talking about the developers' verified visuals of a particular nature and view into the site, and not from the context that we're most concerned about, where you are looking in from an elevated position, where you see the green space as being vital to the understanding of the green corridor that the town council and the area do with purchase status. That those two elements, why we feel it's important, the historic element and stepping stone within building up there.
I wouldn't be able in my youth to be able to quote from these things. It was to vote for everything we've got. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, just going back to the offices. I assume you have to these figures verified independently verified, that's by the valuation. But they are McCarthy Stone's figures. They're not, those weren't independently assessed. Project was independently. What you have assessed with their own figures. Am I right? In this case, they can put, they can put figures to whatever you want.
Groundwork, access to it's that level of detail. I think that those is when by people like do with any sorts of development, and then have that wider range of way more knowledge and private life.
One other point, the exit onto the main road, I think that's appropriately by 5 meters or 5.5 meters wide. Wow. The sort of people I have good public coming in and out. I am so sick that might be a little bit tight. You've got 30 back all right. You're not going straight on, with the $67,000. It's divided by just over 1,200. Obviously around but certainly far more than 500 a year. I have to accept that the VOA is around the thing. Francis Nixon said, and I expect the utility to account to it. I mean, I just find that.
I think we need to be very clear that we as a committee to accept the independent evaluation figure. I think we should
Something. Dispute them. We actually happen. And they are forecast. It's they're very good. Councillor General.
Yeah, so within the document that we have, the planning operations and item to the 6th and 10 the executive position is that this means not financial violence to support the community, local contributions, or the provision of social housing with impact, or the So, my question, I guess, is are we allowed to use cross-dressing routes from regularly and community routes or keeping that we we find that there's a risk. I guess that's the answer.
When I say something, I think our strongest case, your strongest case, the strongest case for the thing is the historical and the importance of to let me. We're building up a really big problem there. Planning commissions that are already granted and they've done that. But I don't concentrate too much on the contributions. That's comes through along the way.
I think we've been slightly different scenario, we really these things are benefit as well. But they're not the weighing in that things there, that was very together. They're not weighing them and so if you really normally say, there are some potential of that quality, but we know we're getting it's all the value of the in some weird way, they're not weighing it, they're not there. But there are very legitimate reasons for them not doing that. I think it's not as if quite frankly, if they were just saying we're not doing it and say rather than it's community, then it's it's a case of you're not weighing that in positive light. There's a genuine reason for them not doing that's it. So to go back to policy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm doing a contrarian thing here, so Councillor Baker will hopefully you'll there.
Even on your job, I guess, even for the devil.
So we acknowledge this as a historic site, but it isn't open to the public in that. It's closed off, so I can see the garden, which has a positive aspect to it, and the public can't go there and spoil it, but it's not. There's no proposal at the moment to open it up as a public area to be used and enjoyed. There might be some plans going forward in the future, and that would be very nice, but I don't know whether we're allowed to take that sort of thing into account. So it's just in a way it's arguing against what you're suggesting, and maybe Councillor Harvey will pretty accepting that we have to house in publicly in times.
I think it's important to say that although there is no public access to that, it is still valued by people in Redwood. Having a green young and a green space, and people, it might not be of use to humans in terms of its site, but it is of value to wildlife. It is of value to residents and the visual community provided by a green space. Simply looking out onto a green space from the elevated positions of Bank Crescent and from nearby roads, Community Park, and from Robinson Meadows, having that green space is really yes.
One other thing there's something. Well,
contribution.
I think I'm raising the policy. G, we're weighing in. I think we discussed MT1 about concerns with the traffic, with access egress point and opposite North Lane particularly, and with the petrol station and along there. The disability access was raised. I think that's within regards to MT1. I think LD1 we're talking about lands town state policy. Yeah.
So policy 2.1, paragraph C, requiring development to conserve and enhance the features of settlement listed buildings and other local heritage assets as appropriate for heritage importance.
I don't want any rules, but I want to hold you. We want to satisfy. I accept the issue about whether it's financially viable or not, but I do one season 6.119 about supporting development and sustainable communities. And we're not doing that here. Whatever the argument is for whether the figures are right or wrong, I don't think that policy is met either. So I would actually have a reason for objection, although at the moment I'm still thinking that.
Then I think the policy simply put wrong of the so because the historic element of the origin of the development setting island age bit by the wildlife corridor, setting terms of integrated planning. And moving on from that, also, my understanding is that that members are listed to say that it has a value in terms of its visual and historic values. And that we also need to be more taking that road. There's thinking about the benefits of the student as well, i.e. thinking about all the things in that sustainable location, etc. And that you're saying that those impacts are outweighing the benefits of that development. In fact, it really, that's the increase in the room, so it tends to continue. The other end of things, in terms of potential conflict or impact on traffic, like access and egress to the site, and disability access to the road complex at the site and the road arrangements to it. LD1 and landscape, is that again, it's going back in, it's going into, as we were saying, value and vision and so definitely the town to how you understand how that historic settlement pattern is developed as a result of
Two 2.1 paragraph C.
and I'm not sure what we're doing about it. So the other one to play the wasn't I said to them, probably verify whether I do one. I would definitely go instead. And that of officers report was
Contradiction, so it's very famous.
that's exactly what it is. It's that they aren't providing these benefits, which is obviously us. Yeah, we get to say that I'm going to find something to nature.
the space to be able to do. And I feel that's a technical advance that we've got accepted, but it's an problem for our shift, so we need to improve on those points. It's like,
There's the alternative to defer a decision until that information is.
No. I find that, of course, we go.
I'm new to this, and it's just better.
We don't want to do this again. Done. We've had a very good it's person said that you're having to go with those particular criteria that are based on the historical side of the site and the traffic implications. Are they happy with that? So, do you want to make any more comments? That is a weary no. We'll move on to Councillor.
I'm not concerned.
Oh, right. Well, there's one positive.
Still don't get right.
Right. Can I now come to a vote? We have a proposal, and second. Those in favour of the so it's noted as outlined. Those in favour.
Sorry.
Against? Abstention? Two. Right, that is covered. Can I now ask, we have a quick thing to say.
Just one moment, Chair. Just one moment, sorry, she's taking a second. You're not live, Chair.
Boulders Lane, perfect. Associated works. Can I invite Mr. Wilson and Mr. Jones? Can I now move on to the officers' presentation? Morgan, you make the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you to members for their time on site yesterday morning. This application is made in full and seeks permission for the construction of a detached 3-bedroom dwelling and 3-bay garage on a site currently in equestrian use. This is a resubmission of a previously refused application on the site, reference 224301, which also proposed a single dwelling house and garage. The site, indicated as usual by the red star, is improved grassland which is grazed by horses, housing and stables currently in situ. The field is bounded by mature hedgerow on the inside, while the north boundary which is placed in wire fence. The site is accessed to the southeast corner off Boulders Lane, which is a no-free road. Next slide, please. In terms of the local context, the Grade 2-star listed St Mary's Church lies to the south of the proposal site, and there are 2 proud footpaths in the vicinity. One further south to the site off Rough Lane, heading northeast, and one past the church which connects to Muchchurch over a kilometre to the southwest of the site. Next slide, please. The site is within Little Birch and Aikenbury neighbourhood development area where the NDP is made and afforded full rates. The NDP does not define a settlement boundary for Little Birch, but instead outlines a network of roads for which plot fronting onto or access from them will be considered appropriate for housing development. Full list of roads can be found in policy LDA 3. The supporting documents assert that the site meets this list of relevance, residential curtilage or other developed plots fronting onto or directly served by lanes and tracks within vehicular access from Rough Lane between Bowlers Lane and Lower House Farm to include the church. As that identified stretch of road leading south of the site towards Lower House Farm is considered to form the settlement of Little Birch, new residential development would be acceptable in principle there. However, in this case, the application site and its access lies on Bowlers Lane. The policy is worded as such that it does not include Bowlers Lane as forming part of the settlement and therefore is not suitable for residential development. If the interpretation preferred by the applicant is accepted, this would by extension open any lane or track leading from the lanes listed as the settlement in the NUP to being acceptable for residential development. In your option view, this undermines and runs contrary to the established spatial strategy of the local plan under policy RO2. These are not considered to outweigh the harm identified with regards to the unsustainable location. The occupants would be reliant on the private motor vehicle for everyday services and facilities, given the distance between any settlement and the proposal site, as well as limited opportunity for public or active travel. The majority of local facilities are located at Muchbridge, with the only designated footpath from the site being unlit and across field. Whilst the nearby trail would offer a form of active travel, this is an informal pathway that has limited accessibility. The surrounding roads to the site do not benefit from pavement or streetlights, making it unsafe for pedestrians. The site does not lie on a bus route, with the closest marked bus stops being installed on Muchbridge, and for the reasons outlined previously, occupants would be unlikely to access the bus services on a regular basis. The dwelling would be a predominantly single story with roof space utilised to provide home office. The building would comprise two adjoining elements linked by a structure housing the staircase to the roof space. This would be constructed of local stone with oak framing, which would not be seen as out of keeping in the locale given the mix of traditional. Noting the height of the proposed dwelling and the relationship with neighbouring dwellings, issues of overshadowing or overlooking are not anticipated. The dwelling is labelled on the plans to provide 3 bedrooms below a large office space with a bathroom and storage area at first floor. There would be a living room, dining room, kitchen and utility within a single-storey rectangular wing. The Home Office would offer home working opportunities, though this is not considered to override the need for private vehicle to access other facilities and services for day-to-day needs. The proposed outbuilding would provide a 3-bed garage constructed of timber, cladding and a 3-bit roof. This would be sited to the north of the dwelling. In terms of landscaping, nutrient planting is proposed to the west boundary of the curtilage, new native hedgerows to the north with existing hedgerows previously contained as boundary treatments. As per the recommended refusal reason 2, as the site is considered to be open countryside, the formalisation of the site through residential development is considered to not respond to the wider rural setting and landscape character. The picture image on this slide just shows the access from Bowlers Lane. This existing access is proposed to be used, and it's considered that there would be a similar movement associated between existing and proposed uses. Though no visibility displays are provided, the existing access is acceptable with sufficient visibility available at the junction between Bowlers Lane and Rough Lane. The area engineer has raised no objection to the scheme for sufficient space to accommodate parking and turning within the site, though it is noted that the site is in unsustainable location with no real alternative other than a private car. Next slide, please. With regards to other technical matters, the council's ecologists have raised no objection to the scheme or mitigation and biodiversity enhancement measures detailed in the submitted ecology survey. The HRA process was undertaken under the previous application on the site and no objection was raised from that window. There have been no proposed changes between these 2 applications that could have an effect on the HRA outcome, and it's therefore still relevant for this submission. The application has been supported by a drainage strategy, stating that foul water will be discharged from package treatment plant discharged to the drainage field and surface water that discharges the ground via safe road. It's noted that the land drainage has requested layout and construction details of the drainage system. However, given the supporting documentation, evidence seems that the appropriate battle and surface water management can be achieved on sites. These details could have been conditioned and would not be a reason to withhold permission. To conclude, it's your office's view that the location of the site is not one supported by the NDP and would undermine the spatial strategy at a time when it can be demonstrated that at a county site would be accessed on Fowler's Lane, which is not a lane or track referred to within the NDP policy LBA 3. Considered acceptable in principle. As a result of the location being away from services and public and active transport, future occupants of the dwelling would have an undue reliance upon private vehicles and access facilities. The proposal to include on-site sustainable energy regeneration, sustainable drainage systems, electric vehicle charging points, and a tight thermal envelope are supported. However, they do not outweigh the unsustainability associated with reliance on motor vehicles for daily activity. Therefore, the adverse impact of the unsustainable location and associated visual impact of formalising an open countryside plot within a rural setting will outweigh the limited benefits of the application and is accordingly recommended to review.
I will come to speakers. I believe I have Mr. Barrington to speak on behalf of the Deferred Parish Council. We have 3 meetings.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Neil Barrington, I'm the clerk of the Liverpool Parish Council, and the councillors have asked me to just quickly read out a statement on their behalf. And it's Stables Planning Application 23316. When this planning application first came to the Liverpool Parish Council on February the 8th this year, with the limit claim as 224301, it was decided that the council were not able to support the application because the area in which the site is located was not included in the Littlebirch and Aikenbury Neighbourhood Development Plan. In the formation of the Neighbourhood Development Plan, it was recognised that Littlebirch was made up of dispersed smaller settlements, and as such, planning would only be considered in these areas. One of these settlements was in Rough Lane around the church. After consultation with the residents starting in 2016, it was concluded that the area of Rough Lane between Bowler's Lane and Lower House Farm only should be included in the neighbourhood development. This excluded the application site as it was clearly an open countryside. At one of the last meetings of the NDP steering committee held on the 16th of May 2018, the applicant asked for the upper part of Rough Lane to be considered for development of the NDP. The consultant, Dr. David Nicholson, explained on the basis of the NDP have been decided upon, and as such, alteration at this late stage should go before the next parish council meeting for discussion. At the next parish council meeting held on the 6th of June 2018, 22 members of the public attended, considerably more than at most meetings. After discussion with regard to an alteration of the already agreed wording of the NDP, the chair asked for a show of hands for Littlebirch and Aikenbury parishioners on whether to keep the original plan or amend it to include Rough Lane. This amendment was clearly rejected by a majority of 15 to 2 of the persons that attended on that evening. This is defined in section 4.8 policy LBA 3 of the NDP. After the elections in May, Littlebirch Parish Council, which normally consists of 5 councillors, lost 2 councillors and gained only 1, so we're down to 4 councillors. The second application for planning at the Stables site was on the agenda for the September Parish Council meeting. At this meeting, 2 of the councillors recused themselves, as they've done previously in the February meeting, as they own the adjoining or nearby land. And this unfortunately had the effect of leaving the council in court and unable to vote on the matter. But since then, we have added additional councillors, and now the council is back able to be called. Whilst the parish council recognises there is support for this application, the council feels that this site goes against the wording of the Neighbourhood Development Plan, which was passed in a referendum by 83 votes to 15 on the 30th of May 2019 and was adopted by Hertfordshire Council. Thank you. Thank you.
The projecting to plan the application 232106 is that it is not in keeping with the neighbourhood plan. A lot of time and effort went into formulating a plan that everyone from the village was asked to participate in. There were open meetings, leaflets distributed, and it was well advertised. Anyone with any interest had ample opportunity to have their say and vote on implemented proposals. The general consensus of all that gave up their time was to formulate a plan that protected open farmland that would still be the necessary number of new build that was required by the government. We were told that by formulating a neighbourhood plan, the villages would have control of the future development of the village. Application 232106 falls outside the boundaries of the neighbourhood plan. Therefore, if the application is accepted, all the time and effort will have been wasted, and the plan might as well be ripped up as though it never existed.
And now I come to Mr. Wilson. That is agent. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, and thank you for your opportunity for us to present our case to the Planning Committee this morning. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the locals who provided 27 letters of support, and I'm pleased to see that there's a number of them here today. My name is John Wilson, and I have lived in Hereford since 1987. I came here with the HMS Forces, and I've been here ever since. When I left the forces, I married my wife, who's a local girl, Rachel, and she's here today. In 2003, we bought a property in Little Birch, where we had 2 children and raised them there. The opportunity came up for us to purchase a paddock in 2014, and we were granted planning permission to build stable for my wife and daughter's horses. In 2019, their hobby turned into a business where they trained horses and provided living. The ongoing requirement to be on site to deal with daily day-to-day administration and 24-hour horse husbandry has resulted in us requiring planning permission to build a property to live in on site. My wife and I have chosen a bungalow due to my ongoing medical issues, where I was sustained a major injury to my left leg while serving in the military and subsequently have developed arthritis. A bungalow will benefit greatly now and help with my mobility in the future. At present, my wife and daughter are travelling to the site 3 to 4 times a day to carry out work and maintenance and keep the quality of business going. By allowing us to live on site, this will dramatically reduce our time spent travelling and will benefit the local infrastructure and reduce drastically our carbon footprint. I have noticed the only objector we've had is a gentleman who's already had two cases of planning permission granted. We have read the officer's report and understand that there are 2 main issues: the location of the development and heritage impact. The Little Birch NDP describes location at which the new housing will be accepted. The officer's opinion as to what the NDP text says is at paragraph 6.7 of the report. With respect, we think the interpretation is wrong. Rather, our view of what the text says and means is in section 3.2 and 3.3 of our planning statement. I strongly believe this to be the correct interpretation. But all I ask you today is spend 30 seconds reading the actual text on policy LBA3 of the NDP to form your own view. Please note that the text mentions development which fronts lanes which are accessed via Bowler's Lane, not just dwellings on Bowler's Lane itself. It is for this reason that we are so sure that our development complies with the NDP. Second issue is the heritage impact. Appointing a heritage advisor was one of our very first things that we did. She was meticulous in analysing the site and was to ensure that the development minimised impact to the church. You will have noted on your site visit yesterday that there is no view of the church from our site. I was very surprised by the conservation officer's comments, particularly given that only 2 months ago the council supported a development far closer to the church with a far greater impact. To summarise, we firmly believe our site is supported by the NDP and does not cause any heritage impact. What it would do is provide a home for me and my family in a village which we have lived and worked in since 2003. That home would allow me comfort as my disability worsens and to carry out running our family business. All I ask is that you truly consider the merits of this case. Thank you very much.
We now move on to the local members and the debate.
Because obviously this is an issue around the MVP. I also just want to say there was a question at the site visit about whether the staging that is there currently with the proposed house would be what we have in mind that, and in fact the business that trains horses would be using when it came to the court council earlier this year, and the court council was clear with supporters for this standard. But it seemed, for me, very straightforward. I believe in these, and it was when the court council studies, I lived in the development area. I went with that, and when I was asked about the delegate decision, agreed to officers report. Following that, I was contacted by lots of people, actually supporters as well as the applicant's agent. And the agent wanted to resubmit the application because we felt that the reason for refusal, the harm alleged, it did not occur. And so that is the reason for this application coming forward. I have looked at this very hard and long and thought a lot about it because as I said, the value of MVPs is crucial to our planning system. I approached two previous parish council two chairs of the Dutch Parish Council, and they sent me this email that said, we looked at the application and we could comply with the Maybe plan that does not include a settlement boundary. And they quote the plan saying, the plan therefore sets out a more nuanced approach which gives scope for the history of development to be assessed at development management stage, while still meeting the requirements of the local plan prospect to the island ranges that form of the settlement. And they add, it's also noteworthy that historically the village of Liverpool was centered around the church, including more dwellings than now exist. And in the 1842 tide map, it shows a cottage-sized building on this application site. The former chairman, Mike Morley, then continued to say, I was not a member of the planning group that did attend several of the meetings. There was obviously a desire to restrict development as much as possible, but to accept the Herefordshire Council target. There was a lot of discussion around trying to define the settlement boundary, but that was eventually deemed to be difficult, if not impossible, because of the speculative nature of the pilot. The NDP is that housing development contributes to the local housing needs while safeguarding the character of the village. And the NDP also states that proposals that support employment and diversification of the economy are the scale and nature appropriate to the innovation and settlement. So this is a family who has lived and worked in Liverpool for many years, although not currently living there, and increasingly having a lot of traffic movements to and from their site each day. They have very strong local connections, they have strong support from the local community with which they are well engaged. John Wilson is a veteran who has been injured in his time in service to this country. And this proposal is for a family home from which his daughter and wife can run their family business, owning houses in place vacant to the home where they are very well rooted. When I look at the three foundations of planning, being social, environmental, and economic, I look at this family and I go, well, from a social point of view, a house here would be important. It's an environmentally sensitive house. It doesn't impinge on the open countryside because of the situation where it is below the hills. However, it is the planning context, the NDP. So I had a look at the minutes of the last steering group meeting, which we had on the 16th of May, and I forgot to set my time. So 5 minutes, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Wilson asked why Rough Lane had been excluded from development in the future, Dr. Nicholson and his fact that NDP have reached the basis of what they had in it already. Dr. Nicholson suggested that the wording be amended to show the whole of Rochdale to Lower House Farm could be open to limited development. All were in agreement. Following that, the meeting on the 6th of June of the Liverpool Parish Council looked at this question and a vote was taken. I think again it was a well-attended meeting and a vote was taken. And my understanding of that is that at that late stage, this was regulation 14 when it happened. They decided that they did not want to make any changes to the NDP at that point. And that it means that the NDP currently states that the village of Littlegrave comprises residential properties or other developed plots fronting onto or directly served by lanes giving vehicular access from and not lane between Bowler Lane and Lower High Farm to include the church. Is one of those. However, the agent is saying that the wording of policy LBAQ is important in determining whether the site is within the village. Policy explains that the village includes developed plots or properties fronting onto or directly served by lanes. In fact, this plot does actually front onto Rough Lane. It fronts onto and is accessed by Bowler's Lane. But if you look at the maps, there is a triangular junction here. You've got Rough Lane, Bowler's Lane, and then you've got Mean Lane, which is the extension of Rough Lane. So this has been very difficult for me. I can see why this finally moved on to the House there. I understand the difficulties that the NDP present and the concerns of the House Council. But I think altogether the agent has provided a way for this, looking at London travel policy, looking at NDP, saying actually this plot actually forms part of the original settlement of Little Birch, the original village settlement. And the wording of the NDP is such that it would bar any development further on these fields, but the actual site itself is within a core settlement within Little Birch. And I think that the aim of the NDP is to provide sustainable housing so that communities can continue to thrive. Little Birch struggled to come up with the development area because of the nature of the sphere settlement and still participated in the process. And all those who voted all wanted to protect that pattern of development. Personally, I don't feel that this threatens that pattern of development, and I feel that that nuanced approach that Little Birch have taken to their neighbourhood development gives scope for some interpretation of this particular site. And I don't think that needs because every with its own value and its own value on its own value. And I think that the open countryside that we are concerned about remains intact. It is not threatened by this housing, proposed house, which is actually on already developed land. I think I'll leave it at that. The final point I really want to say is about the Great Mystic Church. Permission has already been granted for other development closer to the church. And potentially the threat to that church is a little bit more existential than an archaeologically sensitive house within the original village settlement. Yes.
Great. Well, I have some comments. I don't mind picking up. Councillor from live.
Then the points that unsustainability. Well, if they have this house, it's going to be a lot more sustainable and looking where they're coming in every day. Problem is open countryside. This, I think, came in like 1952. Never is a large development. This was never really ever intended to stop this type of development. If we are going to use this constantly to stop people who live in the village to stay in their village, and not force them like many others to go and live in houses and travel every day, which many are, then we have got to allow these sorts of things to do. So, and then talking to the growth target. Well, how many new houses are different works produced? Or they produce any. So I think that would be tight. How many hectares? But different works, as I explained to those members yesterday, it's terribly scattered in the village. It's not a community. The community really around here. But many villages in America, such the Black Death that played many years ago, most of those houses went, most of them in my own village, they all went there. So it's just a totally scattered. If there isn't a community as such, the community would have itself hubs gone, they would have all the around the similar to the church. So you haven't got a community. You're not protecting by stopping these houses. You are not protecting the community. One iota. So I'm afraid I will find it very difficult to face it. I don't think that the case has been fully sufficiently recognized for the areas of the village. And I think it's practical. I think my colleague will explain. Every single time there's an application open, but it will come before us or it will come before planners. Every time it will be considered. It does not set that. And I can think of the area yesterday we went to Leicester. Then Scanhouse House, actually Scanhouse House. It's exceptional architecture, you probably know. It's built on a promontory. Looking over. It's a beautiful house, but it's an absolute eyesore. But because it's exceptional, it's allowed to be built. So I really don't think that anything that sort of unfortunately most of the things that come out in the plan are correct. Thank you.
Thank you for your memories of that day. Okay. It's like yesterday, and seeing what a fantastic area it is, and found to get to. The open countryside that has just been mentioned, I find it hard to understand that part of the justification as the site has statements on it. So it's not open countryside, it is developed slightly already, as one point. But the NDP here is key, I think, and the interpretation of the NDP as well. Paragraph 4.7 of the NDP actually says the neighbourhood development plan recognises that a sensitive approach is needed to define the extent of the settlement and to enable delivery of necessary development if the character of the village is to be sustained. The traditional settlement boundary approach, with its presumption in favour of development on land so enclosed, would not serve its objectives. Local community supports a flexible means of differentiating between settlement and countryside. 52% of respondents in the resident survey compared to 21% of supported use of settlement boundary. So it's that lays out, I think, a degree that we need to have a sensitive approach to what we be as seeking development. I think that also the policy area viewing 3, as has already been said, is residential buildings and local development plots fronting onto or directly served by lanes. And it has been highlighted the Rough Lane, Greenbells Lane, and Lower House Farm in Cambridge Church. This property actually fulfills that requirement. because it is floating onto the River Lane and is accessed by barrels of them. Consequently, I recommend that we support this planning commission.
Is that seconded? Right. Councillor Gaten.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's important to stress at this point that we as a committee are seem to be supporting local neighbourhood development planning. Don't, then I can say that the point of having a lot of effort goes into it. However, we're also guided by the core strategy. And there's one policy within the core strategy, a policy RA3, which covers development in the open countryside. Now, we've heard from the local member that as far as the local parish is concerned, there is no settlement boundaries within Little Bird. If we look at it as a whole, it could be said that the whole of the parish is open countryside. And if we accept that, there'll never be any development at all in the future in Little Bird. Now, that's not right. Maintaining villages, additional housing in the right places is to be supported. My view is that RA3 actually doesn't apply, nor does the local development. Right in the middle of the parish, if you look at it, churches tend to be central to parishes. This is virtually 100 yards away. But I think under the circumstances, we can support the applicants in this particular application. So again, I must apologise for this. There's a lot of work thrown into this report. And she gave us a good presentation yesterday. But I think this is one of those sites that requires a little bit of careful thought rather than sticking to policies. We can be flexible. But again, it is subjective as to what it is. Is it settlement boundaries? Is it open countryside? We have to decide as normal human beings. We are laymen at the end of the day. And I think I would like to support the applicant, which means that we don't support the opposite recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Gaten. I mean, this is the problem we have with parishes and spirit. We actually find the way of understanding it. It's clear as to what we hear that one could interpret the open found and the Councillor Stone was there.
Thank you, Chair. I also feel sympathetic to this development. I agree very much with what the previous speakers have said. There is significant local support, as you've shown in the report. Of course, NDPs are very important. I strongly support them in my area. And I agree with what Councillor Baker has just said. But on the other hand, there can be some flexibility. And just to remind everybody that when the new policy comes in, planning policy comes in, NDPs will be reviewed as part of that process. And that might be a chance for Little Birch to have another look at their own particular policy. But I know we've got to make a decision about this particular application. And I can understand the dilemma affecting parish council. But I think in this particular case, there's strong arguments in favour of the application. Just going along with the exact wording with the ombudsman. I agree we shouldn't make too many exceptions. In this particular case, I think it's a good argument for supporting the application. Thank you.
I mean, I think the wording of the NDP is the problem with the future open to different things. Councillor.
I just struggled with this one. The context provided by the agenda was very helpful. The officer's report, very extensive. I was in agreement with the officer's report, but I very much support neighbourhood developments and where they are clear, where
they have been passed and should be received. Listening to the board members' comments and discussions here and looking at the policies, I feel that in this case, an exception could be made by looking back to the core strategy in relation to policy RA3, which is residential in rural locations outside the settlement, residential entry development will be limited to those with which necessary to the establishment of a rural enterprise and be vital policy RA4. When we look at policy RA4, we're looking at rural enterprise dwelling that I think it possibly could be that, but I find it difficult, really difficult. And I'm not quite sure where I'm, So I think just to reiterate what that actually says, just the housing and why so policy LBO3 in Birch Village, everything you said yes in terms of how those houses design that and then pass it out whatever black line on the plan. They've got right here, we've got a primary example of there's in these things so it's physically a lot of areas to do that. What this policy says is painted with the comprises residential communities or other developed plots fronting onto and directly served by loans with digital access from. And the bit that's included is Rough Lane, Sweden, Bowlers Lane, and Lower House Farm to include the church. The result is it's the other side of Bowlers Lane on Rough Lane, is Lower House Farm, as you can see at the plan, to the south. So it's that nuance, but it's also, I think, it's not explicit, but it is just making that point, and that's what our interpretation of that is. You might have a different interpretation of what that means and what that policy means, and as I said, there's not a specific line around the plan that's identified on that, so it's an interpretation. And as I said, it is a developed plot in that it is the most got on the question in at the moment. But that's just to clarify and just to put that so you can see Sweden Bowlers Lane and Lower House Farms how the NDP group and how the powers assign that particular bit of that dispersed settlement as being part of the wider area of Liverpool. And as has been mentioned, there has been other approvals on that lane between those 2 points very recently. So that is something that we've taken into account and we've been looking at those things. And I think just to clarify when things about justification and personal circumstance, and also the rural building, what you're looking at here is an application for that. Whereas, there's not suggestions to tie that in terms of a condition or a legal agreement as a right to the rural enterprise or business. So that's just the power station of that. And then you've listened to the local support on that, but it is just to clarify that this is essentially an application for that house. It's not tied to it's supposed to be tied to that business and that one.
Where actually the boundary on? Is it actually needed to be boundary?
That's the point. It's not a boundary. It's what they've just done. They said that development. Liverpool settlement boundary is defined by this policy. So there's not a boundary. There's not a nice. That would be easy, wouldn't it? If there was a nice line off the back, there's not a boundary. So it's interpretation. However, the boundary of this particular bit is or the way that this particular area is described is Rough Lane between Bowlers Lane and Lower House Farm to include the church. As I said, no line on the plan is open to interpretation. But just, I wanted to put that plan back up on the screen so you can see. I was a little worried that it was going a bit off piece in terms of that, so.
Another fact, which is on last page. The access of the south of that, so the India of that one.
So it's between Bowland Lane and Lower Park, that side.
Anyway, councillor Hitchener.
Yeah, so, a question with Kelly. And certainly the ward I represent, all the boundaries have a nice black. So is this exception, that it's we're trying to keep the road in that wood? Other precedent we apply, I think, the only where there's a nice solid black.
And we've got main settlements with the principles of houses that are not. So the core structure has that wider RO2 policy that lists all the settlements, but then when you go to private, Swansdale is my favourite one, but where's Swansdale, it's a great big 4 kilometre road. But the NDP tried with draft votes and they tried to look and see where those clusters of houses, and that's exactly what they've done here. So it doesn't have that defined settlement boundary because it's difficult to do. And so they tried to do it slightly different ways. And so where they think within those clusters of houses, the development would be acceptable. And that list of roads and frontages with direct contract. As I said, there's some interpretation on the impact of that, but that is just really drawing to attention that that's the wording of that particular bit of this little part of this cluster of houses with the village. It still needs part of the wider with the village. We also got your opposite actually.
Councillor General.
Thank you. One thing that I just read in the statement is that policies Albert 18 and Albert and provide the opportunity to really cross benefit. Having Pastor and Rugby friendly in the front adjacent to the settlement. So this is exactly adjacent to the settlement. It's fine. It says, it goes on to say, all such dwellings have been granted climate commission since the adoption of the constitution in 2019. And allowed to go further to 10 rainfalls over the remainder of the time period of this year. So with this story to that the latest thing around the potentially there's really amazing. It's just that it's actually granted to the series, right? So they're not there. That's because it's the maximum. So
As the inspector, when we begin the road, how we really the maximum because it's always coming. That would be, I mean, if the inspector is supposed to be for that.
again, from that side, on 24/7, we've got the carbon parcel and red holding. So whether it's in that sort of totally, but it doesn't very much. Because that settlement matrix is a lot of different things. Yeah, that's how more decent you can get from the other side of the road. Is that road, that bit there is a decent.
Councillor Hitchener.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Further question. So, in a way, when I looked at the papers, I thought very much about local democracy. There are 25 people who signed up, but actually it's not 25 people who less than that number of households. There's some people who. But that doesn't go away from the argument. I've had the impression from the supporters that there's an overwhelming support for this. It's might be difficult. I'm not really quite sure whether the NDP was voted on by large majority. So there's a big vote from a lot more people than the
25 we talked about there. Can anybody give me a bit more clarity? I mean, that we probably would be some of the votes on some of these. Very nature of this, where there's no boundary. This is open to interpretations. They will, sometimes, you know, I've known an MBQ which is used to reading parts in my, not in my ward, where, there's an application immediately, they say people vote for the MBQ, they are objecting this particular application. So, you know, because it's slightly ambiguous, this business of not having a bound within the MBQ makes it very relevant that you can actually take the benefit. I don't know if people when they vote on the MBQ exactly know what they voted for. You know? It's very often they so well than that. Thank you. Right, we have a proposal. I think that somebody would say the reason for that. The way I read the policy was neighbourhood development 4.7 in the neighbourhood development plan says recognises that a sensitive approach is needed to define this settlement, namely the necessary development. One part of it. Also, the way I read LDA 3, it was fronted off Road Lane. Admittedly, it says here between Bowers Lane, but Bowers Lane is the access point, Lower House Farm, and also 4.10, policy LDA 3 and LDA 4 provide the opportunity for windfall development on plots of garden, pasture upgrades and adjacent settlement matrix. So if it's considered to be outside the settlement matrix, even though I believe it's actually classed as a part of it, that supports it as well. Hence my justification. When we're referring to the church, I understand what it's said. It's not visible from the church.
Is that is it a theory? What is the theory? Is it really that is
so lots of the lack of a second and are for the document.
And then I think that on the design of the bank, with conflict.
That's open to debate.
That's what we're doing.
Church has a detrimental effect on one. Local matter.
Thank you, members. I have found it very difficult. I think, you know, when I read here, as I said, I really accept the version of the MBQ, really accept the belief for sensitive approach to defining the extent of secondary whilst retaining the character of the debate. Do we accept the challenge that the agent has made that the site meets the criteria of agreement as it is developed for directly served primary lands and tax with free access from Rough Lane between Burners Lane and Lower House Lane, and again it's in that between Burners Lane and Rough Lane, it's that issue that's contentious. And you know, does this house present a threat to the house that works and the integrity of the community? We've been at it a ton of other things today. I think when we supported with the application came from my family, but I can also see from the addresses that there were many we were located to the village, and some of them within Rock Grade itself, some of them previous members of parish council, previous chairs of the parish council. I haven't personally spoken to one person who is against the application, but there is disquiet about the fact that if the application is passed, would that pose a threat to the NDP? I would suggest that the Newbury development area has accepted the need for nuance and development planning study, and that each application is considered with this in mind. I don't think that this particular site threatens the field patterns of the bridge, and or the integrity of that field behind the proposed house. And I'm not sure that the intention of the NDP was to restrict organic growth for families that are well connected to the bridge. So I would finally aim of the NDP is to provide sustainable housing so that our communities can continue to thrive. And I think that Jimbo just started to come up with the development, and because of the nature of the dispersed settlement, and everybody wants to protect that pattern of development. I leave it at that, but thank you very much.
We have a proposal, can I add to that, teaching we delegation of officers and issues that follow the development. Right, can I now ask those in favour? One motion for the, those in favour, please. Those against? Abstention. Thank you, that is public. Can I now ask the providers to